Perfect. All right. Welcome. Now, these are officially are now we're Tuesday night trainings. I've now literally have gotten shifted just this week to Monday. And I'm excited actually to start it off with a bang. We have got a special guest, Ashley Fillmore, is with us tonight. And I always love to bring on other coaches, other that have other areas of specialties. Plus, I tell everybody it's important to have other people. You hear the way that other coaches talk, you'll learn other things from them, even if there's somewhat of a similar thing. And Ashley, I know she promotes and talks a lot about very similar topics as I do between nutrition, strength training, and she also works with a lot of females in the similar age. I almost said grade, age, not grades. No one's in school. But yeah, should we but anyway, Ashley, I want to give you, the floor a little bit to introduce yourself and we will kind of dive a little bit more into our topic tonight. So Ashley, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, hello, ladies. I love intimate groups, and I'm so excited to see you guys here tonight. Thank you for being here. As she said, I'm Ashley, and my company, Metabolic Fix, specializes in helping women sustainably reach their goals. But I go about it in a very different way. So I specialize in sustainable weight loss, fat loss transformations, but instead of focusing in on just exclusively dieting or strength training, we go about things in a very holistic way, assessing hormonal health and metabolic health. So I specialize in hormonal health as it pertains to body composition, building muscle mass, losing body fat, losing scale weight, as a lot of women like to refer, not so much necessarily fat loss, but they want to see the weight loss. So I go in to look at the female hormones that really impact your ability to lose weight, to lose body fat, and we assess every single individual, go through different assessments, testing if necessary to determine where they are, and then from there we will decide what they need to do holistically, ideally, to reach their goals. I've been doing this for almost 20 years, and I have my company is officially online now for 5.5 years. But before that, I actually worked in person with clients for over a decade. So I was an in-person nutrition coach and personal trainer, and I worked at a very like boutique studio.
That's awesome. I didn't know that's a long time, 20 years.
Half of my life almost. Yes.
That's amazing. I love that. Yeah, one of the things that Ashley kind of we briefly talked about at the beginning before you guys hopped on was that obviously we're going to talk about hormone health, right? And that's a pretty popular topic going around the health fields. And nutrition obviously is you'll kind of hear this word all the time about hormones, right? What's going on with their hormones, maybe something's off with their hormones, etc. And I think there's a lot that there's all of it is very intertwined between nutrition, exercise, and just general lifestyles. And yes, there is hormone that pieces that go into this, but I wanted to bring Ashley on to kind of dive even deeper since this was definitely more of her specialty. I do dive briefly on it, but have not dove even, I'm only at the beginning surface of the hormone aspect. So one of the questions I think to start off the whole conversation that was important is like, how do you determine whether you actually have a hormone health issue or if it's something else?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I know that's something we were talking about briefly. And these days online, you're going to see so many different posts and experts talking about hormonal imbalances. And you really do start to wonder if it's something that you're possibly dealing with as well. So, just to normalize things, all of us as women are going to go through hormonal shifts as we age in different phases of life. This is a very natural and normal thing. A big part of the work I do is I want to normalize this conversation. Perimenopause, for example, is something that all of us are going to experience, as well as menopause and postmenopausal. And our hormones are going to shift from season to season. Now, the foods that we eat, the way that we exercise, our lifestyle habits, the way we manage stress are going to impact our hormonal health in a positive or a negative way. Now, there's a lot of misinformation out there about hormones, and some people are reading posts or reading checklists and assuming that they have hormonal imbalances when they really don't. If you are 35 plus, you are officially entering what is called the perimenopause zone. Now, hopefully at 35, you're not there yet, but I have seen women as young as 35 starting to go through perimenopause. And then into your 40s is more of the natural time where that's going to happen. So the perimenopausal phase is where your hormones start to decline, specifically your estrogen, your testosterone and your progesterone. Those three hormones are key, and they actually make us feel really good. It gives us the ability to build muscle, to sleep great, to manage stress well, to have normal monthly cycles, and it impacts so much more than just that. But when they start to decline, we will start to notice some negative side effects to that. So the biggest thing we first need to look at is your age. Where are you in your unique journey? And just because, let's say, you're 40 or 45 or even 55 or older, we cannot immediately say that you're definitely into perimenopause, because it really is based off of your unique hormone profile. The thing that you have to do is watch your body. So when you're trying to determine, is there really a hormonal imbalance, I'm going to go through some symptoms that you can start to watch for. So specifically for women that are 35 plus, this is when your hormones are going to start shifting, as I mentioned. Unfortunately, things like stress, chronic stress, being constantly overstimulated, our nervous systems being constantly overregulated is really contributing to our hormones depleting even more. Environmental factors, food quality, there's so many things, but instead of thinking on those things, I like to focus on what we can control. So when you're 35 going into 40, you can start to experience some symptoms, maybe more so in your 40s. And so some of the symptoms you want to start watching out for are changes in your monthly cycle. This could be an indicator of hormonal issues. It can also be an indicator of acute stress. Cortisol is a wonderful hormone we need, but when produced excessively, so you're chronically stressed out, you're juggling mom life, you're working full time, you're a house manager, you're a wife, you're wearing all the hats. I mean, I'm literally wearing every hat I just said too. If you're not proactively doing things to manage your stress hormone, you may notice that your monthly cycles are a little erratic and irregular. But if you notice consistently, month after month after month, your cycles are irregular, you're maybe spotting, you're bleeding more than normal, your periods are a lot lighter. Normally you have a 5-day cycle and suddenly it's 7 or 8 days, or it's 2 or 3 days. And you start seeing these big shifts, not just acutely, where it's like a one time out of the year, you're a little stressed. That is a big sign that hormonally something is off. So pay attention to your cycle. Additionally, your sleep will start to decline. So you'll notice that you're just not falling asleep. You're not staying asleep. And a lot of times women aren't aware that the hormone progesterone is really what's going to help us sleep well and stay stabilized through the night in the luteal phase of your cycle. So with your cycle, after you ovulate, you're going to transition into that luteal phase. In a normal, when your hormones are happy and balanced, as I like to say, you should feel pretty even. You should still sleep pretty well. But if your progesterone is on the decline, you may notice that you're not sleeping as well. Your anxiety goes up. Do you find yourself worrying a bit more? Maybe there's certain things that you're just really anxious about. You're waking up in the night. Those are all real signs and symptoms like something's going on. Vision your car, and there's all of these little indicators and lights that can come on. Now, your car will still run even when the check engine light is on, maybe, hopefully, until you can get somewhere, but you can drive it and just ignore that light. You can ignore that your tire pressure's on or your oil needs to be changed. But hormonally, your body is always talking to you, so your sleep may be down. One topic a lot of women like to talk about is body composition. So, yes, you may also notice some body composition changes, especially if you're in that perimenopause, 35 to really late 40s. Body composition changes where you're gaining more weight specifically in your midsection. And I want to talk to you guys about the reason why this is happening. So your hormones are correlated with your body fat distribution. And this is something I learned is so cool when I was going through my training almost 20 years ago when I started to connect these dots. So if you are gaining weight in the front of your stomach, that is correlated with a hormone named cortisol. And so you will notice no matter how much you're working out, no matter how little you're eating, you just can't lose the front of that stomach. And it's very much so apple shaped is what I like to refer to. If you are noticing that below your belly button, suddenly you're like, where is this body fat coming from? You notice below your belly button, you're thickening through the middle, not your hips, right below the belly button. You just notice that suddenly some of my clients will say, I've went up a couple of inches. That is also a sign that your estrogen, your progesterone can be declining. If you notice that on your love handle region, you're really thickening up, and this is technically your suprailiac, so right on the hip bone, that is very much so correlated with insulin. So if your hormones are declining, you could also be insulin resistant. And when that happens, that means your body isn't processing carbs efficiently, and you'll see that you are gaining inches there. So if you start to notice body fat accumulating in areas that you haven't seen before, maybe that's another thing you could put on your personal checklist. So I wanted to just kind of start there. But the last thing I'll say is that not eating balanced, not eating enough protein, not doing the correct form of exercise, all of those things can also contribute to gaining body fat in unwanted places, not being able to lose weight. The one thing I want for you ladies to listen up to, for tonight are the other symptoms. Yes, weight gain and increased weight circumference, belly fat, is correlated with hormonal imbalances, but that is correlated with not doing the right types of workouts, not eating correctly. So you really want to dive more into some of the other symptoms that I just mentioned earlier on.
I love that. Let's see. I find this stuff. I find it fascinating. I have not heard it explained like in that type of depth, honestly, Ashley. So
Oh,
I think that's awesome. How do you know? Like, my question for you is like, as you start to kind of correct some of your nutrition, we'll dive a little bit more into that for sure right after this. But I guess my question after that is like, how do you know when it's time to actually go see a physician that it's like beyond past like exercise, nutrition, lifestyle stuff?
so I say within 3 months, if you aren't seeing improvements, implementing all of the things necessary to do to get your hormonal health in a great place, I highly recommend seeing a physician. If you are having really abnormal bleeding, really heavy bleeding, for example, hopefully this isn't TMI with your group, but these are all things that us women will occasionally go through. And I think just normalizing these conversations. If you are suddenly bleeding through a pad every hour, or you're
Mhm.
starting to notice some really serious shifts in your cycle, don't wait 3 months. Get to the doctor ASAP, and please make sure you get a pelvic exam and have everything looked at. But if you're just noticing some, maybe some abnormalities with your cycle, you're gaining a little bit of weight, you're not sleeping as great, you're feeling really just tired but wired, you're even noticing that you're eating very little and you're suddenly starting to gain weight even though it used to help you lose weight, you can try more of a holistic approach where you adjust your nutrition, you adjust your workouts and your lifestyle habits. And from there, if you don't start to see an improvement on at 3 months, at the end of 3 months, I would say you could go to your doctor and get some hormonal test. Although not every doctor is trained in menopause or perimenopause, or even really looks at that as a true medical condition that they're going to technically diagnose and maybe treat you. It just depends on your symptoms. But you can go there, or you can work with someone more in functional medicine, do something like a Dutch test, which is really going to look at all of the sex hormones as well as your cortisol throughout the day, and determine really if your cortisol is natural and normal. Is it high or too low? What about your estrogen metabolite? Is your body metabolizing estrogen correctly? There's something also called estrogen dominance, which if you want to know about that, we can go there too, but it'll look at everything. So we do the Dutch test through my company, but I always like to tell women that let's just not spend your money there right away. I will say this, which I hope is really encouraging. I have seen so many women feel so much better by simply changing their lifestyle, the way they exercise, the way that they eat, that the Dutch test or even additional hormonal testing isn't necessary.
I love that. So let's kind of dive into like the holistic approach that you are talking about. So I guess I know obviously it's between nutrition, exercise, and lifestyle. Where do you kind of want to start there, Ashley?
Yeah, so I think number one is nutrition. We need to dive right in there. I have seen so many women over the course of my career just work out 5, 6 days a week, maybe even twice a day between weight training and cardio. And they're just trying so hard to do the workouts. They're pushing their body to the max. They're getting in their steps, but nothing's happening. So it really does start with your nutrition. If you want to balance your hormones, start with your nutrition. And so what we do in the Metabolic Fix community is we really dive into educating our clients on how to truly eat for hormonal health. Not for necessarily fat loss or weight loss, but we start with the fundamentals. What is clean eating truly look like?
Mhm.
Before we dive into how many calories do you need? How many macros should you be consuming? We really work on the fundamentals. A lot of foods that a lot of us think are truly healthy may not be great for hormonal balance. And so, step one is really just teaching the client how to eat whole foods, how to make sure they're consuming enough protein, all of the wonderful things that you teach your audience as well that I see that you post about. Those are the fundamentals that everyone should focus in on before they even consider going to more advanced, fat loss methods to lose weight or build muscle mass. So we start there. And depending on where the client is, we will focus in on whatever it is that we need to for them. So it may be eating more protein, reducing alcohol consumption, making sure they're reducing the amount of processed foods, educating them on what is processed and what's truly okay to eat. We do live in a time where, unfortunately, having a garden out back and eating from it 100% of the time just isn't realistic. So, we're going to be shopping in the stores and eating out and teaching the client how to navigate that. So, we really start there first and then layer on the strength training, but in a really functional way. Very similar to what you do as well, where you're really doing the basic core exercises that's going to yield maximum results, but aren't necessarily trendy or not what you're going to see in an Orange Theory class, but are incredibly effective for building muscle mass, helping boost your hormones, and exactly what you need to be doing if you have hormonal concerns.
Yeah, that's awesome. Could you give, I'm curious of what your list is, just a brief list of what your processed versus non-processed food, kind of just off the top. I know I'm throwing you on the spot here on that one.
Right. Yeah. So, no, that's a great question. So, first and foremost, if I do know that a client is in full on perimenopause, so again, that we know for sure that there is a decline in their sex hormones, their progesterone, their estrogen, and their testosterone, which many of the women I work with truly are fully there. I will be very careful about what carbs I select for them. So, let's just say if you are maybe not even concerned about your hormones being in balance and you just want to eat better, you just want to feel good, you want to see results in the gym, you're going to have a bit more flexibility than just someone that's maybe dealing with insulin resistance. So
Mm.
that's when your body's not processing your carbs as efficiently. And you have to be more careful on what carbs you eat, even compared to someone that has a healthy metabolism. They can get by with maybe eating more carbs. So the non processed carbs are going to be, in my opinion, the potatoes. You're going to obviously your potatoes, all of your vegetables are going to be non processed carbohydrate, all of your fruits. I also include quinoa, rice, white rice, actually, or brown, but go for the white rice. I only eat white rice. Beans. I'm also a big fan of keeping some high quality bread on hand in today's times. I know some people may not agree with that. Maybe Ezekiel bread, a cleaner bread. I really like the Ezekiel bread. Food for Life is the actual brand. It's really clean and sprouted grain. If you can tolerate gluten, it's a really great way to get that bread in, the convenience factor, maybe make a nice sandwich or whatever it is that you want to do with that. So I would say all of your fruit, your vegetables, potatoes, quinoa, rice, beans. We can also throw in some old fashioned oatmeal. Those are all clean foods. And when you start eating those cleaner carbs, your body is going to feel so much better. So the processed ones, in my opinion, are going to be 99% of the cereals, 99% of the granola bars. All of the trendy keto foods that we're seeing are horrible for you. In my opinion, go for the real thing. Don't fall for the keto. That's really just more processed ingredients that you're putting in your body. Now, it doesn't mean that you can never eat some cereal or a piece of pizza, but just keep in mind that you want to do it in moderation when you are prioritizing your hormonal health.
No, yeah, I think, yeah, that's exactly. I mean, those are a lot of the similar things that I talk about all the time as well. But yeah, I think because yeah, I think the marketing. I was just talking to somebody else. We were talking about Greek yogurt, right?
Mm.
And she was like, "Oh, I like Greek yogurt." Well, technically, Greek yogurt is marketed as pretty healthy, nutritious, whatever, etc. And then she talked about like dove into the brand and the flavor, and then you start kind of diving into that, and then it gets a little bit. Well, I was like, well, technically, yes, it's Greek yogurt, but now this type of brand, and it can get very confusing with the marketing with food. It's a very confusing topic for people that
Yeah,
don't, it's not something that you it's not your career. It's not something that you're passionate, it's not something that you necessarily it's not educated to the public very well, right? It's just a generalized all Greek, Greek yogurt's good for you, eat it, right?
right.
And then it
But
gets a little
it's not all healthy, like you just mentioned. And so with
yep,
Greek yogurt, I'm a big fan. I know a lot of people don't necessarily love the plain, but the plain is really the best. You can add your own berries. I tell my clients to even buy frozen berries, put them in the microwave for a couple of seconds, let them defrost, and you pour that on your yogurt, and it does
that's
give
a
it
good
a little
idea.
more flavor. You could even do a little bit of honey. So remember, your body is going to process natural sugar more effectively than something that's processed and made in the lab. So it's sad that our culture has really pulled us away from eating real whole food.
Yeah.
And we are now afraid of, a high quality honey that's going to have minerals and all of the good stuff in it. And instead, we're leaning more towards, the process with all of the ingredients that we can't pronounce. And quite frankly, we're not even sure what we're putting in our bodies.
Yep, definitely. I mean, I think also it's important just to kind of go down the list of just the basics, right? Just kind of you talk through the basic carbohydrates and the process versus non-process, starting there. And then if you want to start fine tuning, like, okay, let's pick a better Greek yogurt. Like if that's the Greek yogurt right now, let's start there, but let's look at the other things. Like that's not the only issue on the list. And I talk a lot about that too. It's just like, let's fix that. Let's fix on the protein and not having to get into the nitty gritties of the brands because that gets
Yeah.
a whole nother discussion.
Exactly. It can be very overwhelming.
So I know you briefly mentioned about exercise with strength training. Anything else that you promote with exercise to help with hormonal health?
Yes. So with hormonal health, if that's something you want to start focusing in on or something that you feel like maybe you're even concerned about, I highly recommend focusing in on strength training and walking. Be very careful with the amount of cardio that you do. And if you are doing cardio, make sure you're not doing a ton of cardio. So, weight training is going to be critical. At the age of 30, we are going to start losing muscle mass unless we are proactively strength training. So, shoot for 3 to 4 weight training sessions per week. You can modify your session. You can do them at home. You can do them in a gym. You can do them with dumbbells only. It doesn't have to be super complicated. Don't let everything you see on social media with these influencers, with big gyms and all of the equipment. You can have simple but very effective workouts. I have nothing against cardio, but when it comes to hormonal health, we have to be very careful with how we use it. Cardio is very catabolic in nature, so meaning it's going to break down muscle tissue. When you're naturally seeing a decline in your hormones and you're also over the age of 30, and naturally, regardless of your hormonal state, your muscle mass is going to start to decline unless you are proactively strength training, eating enough protein, focusing in on recovery. So you want to be careful if you're doing too much cardio, that's going to set you up for more muscle loss versus building or sustaining. And it's going to stress your hormones even more. Cortisol is very much so connected and is going to impact your thyroid, all of your sex hormones, and your insulin levels. So be careful. My favorite form of cardio, which I don't even necessarily consider it cardio, is leisure walking. So if you want to weight train, if you're concerned about your hormonal health and walk, that is really the safest choice for you. If you are doing cardio, try and limit how many days a week you're doing the cardio. And if anything, shorter, more intense HIIT training would be a more effective way for you to protect your muscle mass, prevent that muscle atrophy, and still get a ton of benefit from doing it.
Ding ding. I think they all yeah, that's the exact same message I promote. So I should throw and if you guys that I know that hopped in here a little bit afterwards, if you guys have questions, let us know and we'll answer those as well too. So um last one, you talked about lifestyle. So what does like lifestyle, how does that affect hormone health?
It impacts your hormones so much. You know, I always say that even if you get a Dutch test or you have some labs ran at your doctor and your sex hormones come back low and your cortisol's through the roof, you can eat well, you can exercise correctly. But if you're not addressing the lifestyle component, you will constantly find yourself struggling. Now, this is a hard and realization for all of us to be totally transparent, and even one for myself because I'm sitting here, a mom of two, just like you, same age almost, working full time in my business. And we all are juggling so much that sometimes it is easier to do the workout and to eat the food that you're supposed to eat compared to truly changing your lifestyle. But the lifestyle component is really important. And so, first and foremost, we need to look at you as an individual and determine where is the ball dropping? Are you really stressed out? Are you sleeping 7 to 8 hours a night? Do you have great boundaries with your phone? Are you scrolling on social media until midnight? Are you making time for your workouts and steps? Do you have time to prepare healthy food or buy healthy foods for yourself? Or are you stressed to the max, sleeping 4, 5, 6 hours a night, scrolling on your phone all night, not having any time for yourself, and barely any time to get any type of movement in? And so we really do have to look at you as a whole, establish a bedtime routine, establish a routine that's going to support your new lifestyle. So it could be changing the way that you function on the weekends. Maybe you're spending some time and you are going to spend time now food prepping or buying foods, or you're looking ahead at your calendar and you're penciling in workouts and maybe a leisure walk on your lunch break or after dinner. And so it may take some adjusting. You may have to talk with your partner, your spouse. You may have to adjust your schedule a little bit, enforce more boundaries. But all of that is really critical when it comes to you getting healthier and becoming that healthier, and healthiest version of yourself.
Definitely. I know it that's a bit I mean, I think of the 3 topics, I think nutrition and nutrition, sorry, and lifestyle become the most complicated. And when I should put that in quotations just due to because there's so many individualized like factors based on where they're at in their life, like you said, stressors, etc. Every individual has different styles when it comes to all that. So how about like individuals that go post, like, so we've hit perimenopause. I mean, we can even hit menopause to postmenopause. Like, how does the hormone shift happen or not happen, but like, what does that look like? And is it a similar path if you've hit that phase of your life?
So postmenopausal.
Yeah, we'll go postmenopausal.
Okay, so after you go through perimenopause, you're officially in perimenopause and you're going to stay there for potentially years before you actually hit menopause. And menopause is when you went one full calendar year without a cycle. So that's it. One full year. Once you complete that, you've officially menopause has been done. Then you're moving into postmenopausal. And that is where you are really adapting to this new norm hormonal state. This is where some women choose to holistically manage and prioritize eating well, exercising correctly, doing all of the things that we just mentioned, the lifestyle habits. And this is also when some women consider potentially some type of hormone replacement therapy, which is a very individualized journey for every woman. And many factors need to be considered by a medical doctor before going down that road. But some women don't feel well where they physically need to supplement with estrogen or a testosterone or a progesterone cream to even feel their version of normal. And so every woman is different and every single body is going to respond very differently. I have women that go through perimenopause and they experience no symptoms. I have a client that's 78 years old. I've worked with her my whole career. She's done no hormone therapy. She's only lifted weights. She eats her protein, follows very similar nutrition principles to what we've talked about here, and she feels great. She never noticed any of the symptoms really. Maybe just a little bit of moodiness as she was getting closer to menopause. And so it's a really individualized journey. But if you are postmenopausal in that phase, you really want to make sure that you are prioritizing strength training and you are eating enough protein, because the decline of muscle mass is going to increase significantly as you get older, especially 65 plus. So you want to make sure that you are prioritizing strength training. It is something that you've just worked into your routine, like brushing your teeth 3, 4 times a week. You're getting in those sessions and you are eating your protein, shooting for at least 20 to 30 grams per meal.
Yeah, I think that's great. Is it true that Ashley, that as even like let's go post menopause, you're obviously now you're postmenopausal, sorry. And is it still hard like if you were having hormonal imbalances or not imbalances, but your hormones seemed off obviously during the perimenopause, you gained the weight, you gained inches, etc. And now you've hit postmenopause. Is it harder to actually start to shift postmenopause versus the perimenopause as far as improving your health?
I've actually seen some women feel like it's a little bit easier postmenopausal. It's the fluctuations aren't as intense or there like they were in perimenopause when you're still menstruating and maybe your cycles are becoming more and more irregular, but you're still having those peaks of estrogen. You're still having those peaks of progesterone. Maybe your testosterone levels are still fluctuating a bit more. And so I will definitely say for women, the perimenopausal phase seems to be the hardest phase out of all of them.
Interesting. I mean, it makes sense because your body's literally it's the transition period, right?
Yeah.
So I heard it once on a podcast, whether it's correct or not, was that the reason why we don't know enough about menopause and why it's so different is because I think we're the only mammals that like live past uh
Yeah.
what to menopause, whereas most mammals don't. They like pass, we live longer.
Yes, you're exactly right. And there now we are just starting to do more research.
Yeah.
And sadly, there hasn't been a lot of research done on women going through perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopausal. A lot of the studies are based off of men, actually.
Yes.
And so that's really unfortunate. And I don't think that there's enough loud voices speaking up and saying, hey, we are women and our bodies function very differently. Although this study may be great and accurate, it was done on men. We have a totally different hormone profile. And actually, even every single one of us, our hormonal state is going to be different at different times throughout the month. So we aren't even consistent every single day for the whole month.
So we're giving them a run for their money too. No.
Yes.
I mean, it's the same thing with when you're like you have pregnancies. Every pregnancy is different, right? Even from the
Right,
same woman, every pregnancy experiences very different things, and so I think we're just a very complicated creature. No.
right. And this is also one of the primary reasons why cookie cutter diet programs are
Mm,
not effective.
mhm.
If you imagine everything we've talked about tonight and how important it is to have things customized and tailored to your needs, when you are jumping in a program where everyone's eating the exact same amount of calories, following the generic MyFitnessPal macro splits, they're doing the exact same workout, regardless of their state and hormones. It can be sure there's a percent that are going to respond, but there's also going to be a percentage of women that aren't. And typically, that's going to be the 35 plus women that are going through perimenopause or already through it. They're not going to see the same kind of result. And that woman may even think, when I was 20, I could do this and I would lose 15 or 20 pounds, but now I'm gaining weight or I'm not losing. What you did before will not serve you in this new transition and new phase of life.
Ding ding. I love that. I love how you put that. I think that's like nailed it on the head. Last quick question I thought of. I like I said, my brain always racks. That's why I like interviewing people because I love to hear what people have to say. So I know this is a slight switch, but it is obviously still under the topic with metabolism. The only reason why I brought to life is because my mother is 72, something like that. And we were talking about the metabolism and she just recently sent me an article. She's like, "Oh, you need to check out this article." And this article was talking about how your metabolism actually does change as you age. Do you have any thought like I said, this is a completely different topic, and then we'll wrap it
Yeah.
up here, but do you have any thoughts on the aging and metabolism, how all that is intertwined?
Yeah, so I think our metabolisms will change regardless of our age when we start to lose muscle mass. So, one thing that we know is there's a huge correlation between the amount of muscle mass an individual has and their metabolic rate. So, everyone says that as you age, your metabolism decreases. Well, I did the research. Guess what else decreases? Their muscle mass. So, if your muscle mass is decreasing as you get older, your metabolism is going to decrease. And that means you're going to burn fewer calories. So you maybe used to be able to eat X amount of calories. Now you go to eat that much and you suddenly start gaining weight. You suddenly start noticing that you're picking up extra body fat and you're thinking nothing's really changed. Well, a lot has changed. And if you're not strength training and following very similar principles to what I know you and I talk about often on social media, probably to all of our clients, your weight could actually be the same, which is really deceiving, but you have lost muscle mass and built, or I guess gained more body fat. You didn't build body fat, you gained more body fat. No one wants to build
Mhm.
body fat. So you
Yeah.
gained more body fat and you lost muscle mass. And so the scale weight may be the same, but let's just say maybe before a larger percentage was muscle mass on your frame. Now it's going to be a lower percentage. And you could have, over the years gained more body fat. So that's taking up a larger percentage. Body fat takes very little energy to sustain. And with that being said, when you lose muscle mass, you are literally lowering your BMR, your basal metabolic rate. So, the one correlation I've seen with research is that when you lose muscle mass, you lower your metabolic rate. And additionally, if you are not exercising, moving your body as much, sometimes as we age, it's easy to become sedentary. You stop doing things that is also going to impact your metabolic rate. And so, if you are lifting weights, doing things to support building muscle mass, staying active, doing all of the other wonderful things that's going to help keep your metabolism revved, I know for sure that you can still eat plenty of calories and you're not going to gain weight. But if you're losing muscle mass, sedentary, not eating enough, and it's really a domino effect. When you are losing muscle mass, your appetite may drop down. When you're not active, you may notice you're not as hungry. So you're going to start eating less. You're probably going to stop eating as much protein because it's so satisfying and filling. And so you think about this, it's just one thing after another that's going to just add up, and that's going to yield a slower metabolic rate. So we have to reverse that. We have to lift weights, get stronger, build muscle mass, support, stay active, walk, move around your house, park your car at the back of the parking lot, take the stairs, challenge yourself, look for little pockets of opportunity to get in more movement. Think about every single meal having a protein. If you're afraid of hurting yourself, try the machines at the gym where you're going to just naturally be safer. That's
Yep.
what I tell my ladies is look, if the free weights are scary, I understand. Use the machines, even if you just want to use them temporarily to get started and then progress to dumbbells.
I love that. I think this is the way, like I said, the way that you just talk about it and educate is just a very different style. And I don't know, I still find it fascinating, even though it's my cup of tea too.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else, Ashley, or anything that you have that I like didn't ask, or anything that you want to throw in there?
Yeah, so I think it is so easy sitting here or maybe listening to the replay to feel really overwhelmed. And I know how that feels is to, I've actually been in a similar spot very early in my career before I went on to do all of the advanced certifications on hormonal health. And I just remember when my hormones were very imbalanced, I had adrenal fatigue, which is where your cortisol levels have been so elevated for so long there's really an adrenal insufficiency and your adrenal gland just isn't even working anymore. So you're tired, all the symptoms I mentioned, but maximum on steroids. I remember just really feeling helpless and almost overwhelmed with the amount of action steps that needed to be taken to get in a better spot. So maybe, hopefully, you're nowhere near where I was years ago. But if you're somewhere on this journey and you're thinking, oh my gosh, some of those symptoms are definitely what I'm experiencing, start small. You don't have to do everything at once. You could literally start with just your sleep routine. simply eating 20 to 30 grams of protein, working with a trainer, a coach that can design workouts for you, that can hold you accountable to them. Those things are really critical. And invest your time and energy in someone that's going to give that back to you and care about your journey and take that very seriously.
I love it. Yeah, that's perfect. See, you're very well spoken.
Oh,
I don't
thank you.
yeah, just the way that you communicate the information is just like, I feel like they're just like, I don't know, dimes. I don't know, whatever you would call.
Oh,
I
thank
kind
you.
of flutter around sometimes.
I
So
guess I've said this for years and years.
probably so. It's
Point, it's
just,
like I could do this in my sleep.
I
My
know.
daughter, my 9-year-old, she always says, "Mom, do you get nervous when you do talks to people?" Because she's seen me do big talks in front of people in
Yeah.
universities and big presentations for companies. And I say, "No." But she's like, "Well, did you ever?" I'm like, "Yeah, I
Yeah.
did. For sure. I used to get sweaty and anxious, but I've just done this for so long. And this is all I've done my whole career.
Yeah.
So it's within my wheelhouse, and I just can talk about this forever."
That's awesome. No, I love it.
Yeah, does anyone have any questions? Your audience or
Yeah.
anyone? No?
Nora's like, maybe not. And if not, no worries, of course, if you think of anything later too. So, oh,
Oh,
there, go for it, Nora.
not a, I guess maybe a question. So, you talked about all of the cortisol levels and it being high and sustained cortisol levels. How does that affect a person? Because, I guess I got to go back. What happened to me? Well, at 10 plus years of, a crazy job and then going through menopause at that time and finding out I had Hashimoto's, and it was all this big crash at one time. And do the cortisol levels ever normalize? Because it seems like mine aren't. I guess that's where I'm going.
Okay. Yes. Well, I want to tell you that 100% your cortisol levels can definitely normalize. Number one, I think it's establishing a really great stress management routine for yourself, whatever that may look like. So I'll give you some ideas, and this is what I talk about with my clients all the time. So for all of us, there's different things that we do that really will relax our bodies and just trigger our nervous system to finally calm down. When your cortisol's elevated for prolonged periods of time, you are going to find yourself just really unable to wind down. You're just wound so tight that no matter where you are or what you're doing, there's just no off button. You're not sleeping well. You're probably exhausted. You probably need caffeine to survive through the day or some form of energy drink or soda that has caffeine, if not coffee. You probably are going to be eating very irregular with cortisol. You're not going to eat at all, or you're going to eat all the time. It's usually one of the two categories people will fall into. And it has to start with one, taking a look at what we can do to get your nervous system in a more regulated place. We do know that obviously things like meditation are great. I'm really bad at meditation. And to be honest with you, that created more stress for me just doing it. I ended up just feeling like I couldn't do it. I was getting anxious about it. I paid tons of money for this very fancy app, and it was just like I was wasting my money and all one thing after another. So I feel like for my clients, the reason I said that with hesitation is that one just hasn't really hit with clients, the meditating, although it's wonderful if you can do it and it really will help your nervous system. So there's nothing against it. I just feel like it's hard for a lot of people to practically work it into their life. So I think leisure walking, research shows that walking at a leisure pace, so meaning you're not out power walking or trying to turn your walk into a run. You're truly just walking at a leisure pace. For a lot of people, that's probably going to fall anywhere between a 18 to 22, 23-minute mile. That's what I'm talking about for leisure. So that's not speed walking at all. Research shows that it's going to help balance out your cortisol. Journaling has also been a great way to dump everything off of your mind because typically when you are stressed out, you're in a very hyper vigilant state where everything around you is just, you're responding, you're thinking, you're never shutting down your mind. You're worried about work, you're worried about your kids, you're worried about your roof, whatever it is in your life. It's just one thing after the next. And it's probably going to go throughout the day to everything I just mentioned and back through. So you have to get this out. So journaling is a very cheap way to do this. And then even something like therapy, just having someone that you can openly talk to is very helpful. Additionally, taking magnesium glycinate's a wonderful supplement I use at night, specifically the magnesium glycinate that can help your nervous system wind down. It can help your body prepare better for sleep. And I highly recommend, if you are a stressor and deal with elevated cortisol, set some boundaries around your phone. Although it's a great way for us to stay connected, it can be a great trigger. If you're scrolling on Facebook and you see that a friend is sick, or you see that someone you went to high school with passed away, or whatever it may be. I have clients come and say, I was finally feeling calm, and then I went on Facebook and I saw this. So maybe every night at 8 p.m., you put your phone down for the night, and that's the last time you look at it, or 7 p.m. Also, if you have a hard time with sleep, there's research that shows that having some carbohydrates with your dinner can help increase the melatonin and help you wind down and go to sleep. So maybe some sweet potato or rice. I wouldn't do a low carb dinner if you are a high stress person. Add some carbs in, that's going to help. Obviously with your protein and some veggies. But some people will say no carbs because there's this big myth that if you eat carbs at night, you're going to gain a bunch of weight. And so you can eat your carbs at night. You're not going to just gain weight because you had carbs at night. So that can definitely help. Some people, reading for pleasure is a really great way to just get their mind off of things. Talking to a friend, walking with a friend, getting coffee, leaning into support, having someone very wonderful in your life to support you and help you through things, knowing your circumstances. And honestly, strength training is a really healthy way, when done correctly, to burn off cortisol, because it's just building in our bodies. And that's the problem, is we are not able to get rid of it at all. And it's just like we're constantly running from a bear that's really not there. And so that's the problem, is like life is the bear now that we're trying to constantly run from. So
Thank you. Thank you. That was very, very helpful. Thank
you're
you.
welcome.
Just to tag off of all the suggestions that Ashley suggested to Nora, is I think you sample, like sprinkle them all in. I think sometimes one thing works one time, and like if you like, or you can kind of piece it together, like, oh, well, this one works, this doesn't work, but maybe the next time it does work. Like, I feel like when you try to find de-stressing activities, it's just, it sometimes depends on the day or how stressed, whatever happened that specific day. So don't be like, oh, I went on a walk and it didn't work. Like, maybe it just didn't work for that day.
Yeah,
I think
I love that. That's so true. And you're right. Maybe for that day it didn't work, and you need to call a friend, or journal some extra thoughts out. Open up a book or a great magazine that is not going to trigger you. The thing with cortisol is that you want to make sure you're doing activities when you're trying to calm your body down that's not triggering to you. Lastly, the thing I want to mention about cortisol is, naturally your cortisol will peak at certain times of day, and that's a good thing. We want that to happen. So in the morning upon waking, your cortisol should be the highest that it should be the highest for the whole day. It's going to peak again later in the day. Typically with elevated cortisol, the problem is it stays elevated all evening through the night, and you're not able to get to sleep or get in your deep sleep. So you really want to focus on what can you do to get your body to wind down. So it's going to be evening time for you now. It's like, what can you do to help yourself wind down and really start to feel like you're in a safe spot, so you can get a great sleep, which is going to help reset your hormones and help your cortisol, your adrenal function as well.
all the things. Yes. Kristen asks, what are you recommending for steps a day? Do you have a recommendation there, Ashley?
Yeah, so the steps a day. So typically I always like to ask someone where they're starting. I don't like to overwhelm clients. So if you're only getting 3,000 or 5,000, maybe hearing 10,000 is a bit much. So I typically say, if you can shoot for somewhere between 8 to 10,000 steps per day. You're moving quite a bit, to be honest. And if you maybe work in a hospital or you're a personal trainer, you're probably getting in a lot of steps, so it's not as challenging. But, for most of us, it's working in a desk and just managing our household. 8,000, 10,000, you're working at that. You're probably at least taking one walk every day, 30 minutes to get in some extra steps. So I'd say 8 to 10K. I do have clients that are on the lower end of maybe 3 or 4,000. And so I will say start with 5 or 6,000. So I would suggest, Kristen, taking a look at how many steps you're getting per day and try and bump it up by 1 or 2,000 and start there.
Perfect. Perfect.
The best results come from really, I'd say between 8 to 10. I will say I have seen clients struggle when they're getting under 5,000 steps per day, reach their goals.
That makes sense. I see. Well, anything else? Kristen and Nora, I know you guys are the only ones here on live. And then of course, if anyone else, kind of, because of course I will post this as a replay. And if they've got questions, we'll kind of, oh, my dog just popped in. We'll send them your way, Ashley, if we have any questions. But if, I guess I should always like to throw out there, where can people find you, Ashley?
Yeah, so I'm hanging out on Instagram all the time. Ashley_Fillmore, FILLMORE1. I'm always there. I'm also a podcaster, and my show, Cheers to Your Success, I go into all of this in a lot more detail. And I usually try and break things into separate topics so it's not overwhelming as much. But I talk about hormones, metabolism, mindset, lifestyle habits, and I share a lot of my journey as well, because I do think sometimes it's really helpful to clients to know that, hey, your personal trainer, your nutritionist, your nutrition coach has struggles too. And this is how I work through things. So I always try and shine the light on that and give tips on, how I even work through things. But my show, Cheers to Your Success, you can find me on all major podcasting platforms.
Awesome. Well, deal. I'll also, of course, make sure to tag you in all this stuff too. So my
Yeah.
audience can find you. So,
Well, thank you so much.
yeah, of course. Thank you so much, Ashley and Nora. Krista, thanks for hopping on live. And I know we had Natasha, but she popped off. That's all right. And, but yeah, thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Have a great night. Thank
All
you.
right. We'll see you, everybody.
Bye.
Where is the...
Awesome. Thank you.